All right, Sean, Mr. Alternative Facts Spicer got light duty this week. He's only on one Sunday morning talk show, and he got Martha Raddatz instead of getting George Stephanopoulos, who I believe would have pressed him a whole heck of a lot harder than Martha Raddatz did. Here we go.
Turn straight to White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer. Good morning, Sean. I know there are many people who support this, but you heard those strong reactions, those stories of people stranded at airports, detained, Jesuit priests, veterans calling this un-American.
Well, let's look at the facts of what happened. There's 325,000 people from foreign countries that traveled into the United States yesterday. There were 109 people that this actually addressed that had come in post-entry.
Okay, that's the first misinformation. There were 109 people that made it here. There were an additional 173 people that the airlines would not allow to board the planes coming from the Middle East. And various Middle Eastern countries, including those 7, but if you were a person whose national origin was of one of those 7, you were prevented from traveling as well.
7 countries that we've identified that, in fact, actually the Obama administration had previously identified needed further travel restrictions. We've gone in.
Okay, he obviously misstated that, but he stated his slightly different than the Weasel and the Spin Witch. What he said was that they needed additional travel scrutiny. Okay, where actually the Obama administration stated that these countries that they listed were countries that were identified as dangerous for American citizens to travel to.
Harry pointed out it's a 90-day ban to ensure that we have further vetting restrictions so that we know who's coming to this country. The safety of the American citizens, the safety of our country has got to be paramount. And that's what the president did yesterday, is to ensure that the people that we're letting into our country are coming here with peaceful purposes. And
if he were so hot on ensuring that the American people would be safe, he would have added, obviously, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and Lebanon, since that's where the terrorists came from that actually killed American citizens. Not to mention Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Not to do us harm. So this really comes down to 109 people who are all being processed through the system to make sure that when they've gone out of the country, gone somewhere that is one of those 7 countries, and coming back, that they've done so and not tried to go there and do anything that would cause our nation harm.
Okay, he again misstated, because all of those people did not travel from one of those 7 countries. Some of those people traveled from different countries, but because of their national origin being from one of those 7 countries, they were prevented from coming here, or they were stopped when they got here. So he just gave us some alternate facts.
109 people, probably Muslims. What message does this send to Muslims worldwide?
What it sends is that we're going to protect our country and our people. There are 46 other countries with Muslim populations that are not part of this. And I think that's an important thing to note. So whether you're talking about Algeria, Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, or the UAE, there's 46 Muslim majority countries that are not in this 7. These 7 countries were identified by the Obama administration needing further travel.
He keeps repeating that lie, but there were no Christian countries on that list. And I can think of 1, 2, 3, or 4 Christian countries that have documented terrorists residing in those countries. Number 1 is the Netherlands. Number 2 would be the United Kingdom. Number 3 would be France. And number 4 would be Germany. Terrorists residing in those countries, but they do not have the same travel restrictions.
about the countries like Pakistan, like Afghanistan, where there have been terrorist
And we're
attacks,
going to
Saudi Arabia
we're
on
looking at this,
9/11.
we're looking at all of this holistically. But I think the first step
But
was
why
to look-
these first, where there haven't been
I just
terror
said it
attacks?
twice because I think these were the Obama administration put these first and foremost and said that these countries need to have further travel restrictions based on the intelligence that we have.
See, that's a bullshit answer. Okay, on its face, it's a bullshit answer. So that just lets you know that they picked these countries for reasons other than them being the most dangerous as far as terrorists coming from those countries to this country. It's total bullshit answer.
So, you know, those were identified by the previous administration. There were further travel restrictions already in place from those 7 countries. What the president did was take the first step through this executive order of ensuring that we're looking at the entire system of who's coming in, refugees that are coming in, people who are coming in from places that have a history or that our intelligence suggests that we need to have further extreme vetting for.
Wouldn't it make more sense if you were taking the first step to make the first countries that you were restricting those countries that actually had terrorists that got over here and performed terrorist acts? Wouldn't that be the first step, hitting countries that had already done us harm instead of picking countries that hadn't done anything to us whatsoever at this point in time? I think that's probably where I would have started. But, you know, Donald Trump and his people, they do most things ass backwards.
Let's talk about Iraq. You saw that an Iraqi interpreter for America was detained temporarily. I have been in Iraq with those interpreters. They have saved lives
Absolutely.
of American soldiers, and now you're saying you can't come in.
No, that's not what we're saying, Martha, not at all. We're going to say we're going to make sure that we don't let someone slip through the cracks who seeks to do our country harm. That's it. The person was processed in. I know that in some cases there's going to be a bit of an inconvenience, but the inconvenience
Is there any humiliation?
No, there's 109 people that were slowed down, over 325,000 foreign visitors that came in. But
He calls 8 hours, and there are still some people in custody. He calls that being slowed down. Yeah, right. And also, he misstated again, because anybody who attempts to start the process now from those countries will be held up for 4 months before the process even starts. So again, Mr. Alternative Facts at it again.
what do we say to the family that loses somebody of a terrorist, to whether it's Atlanta or San Bernardino or the Boston bomber? Those people, each of whom had gone out to a country and then come back. Now, granted, they're not on the country.
None of those are countries
But the
on
point
the
is,
slip.
See, yeah, he just killed his own arguments because none of those countries are on the fucking list. And on top of that, it was American citizens that performed those terrorist acts. So he's still basically blowing smoke up our ass with that explanation.
we took the first step in ensuring that a terrorist attack won't continue to occur on this country. And so what do we say to the family or to the individual who gets hurt or the family of someone who gets killed because we didn't take these steps? Protecting this nation and our people is the #1 priority of this president and our government.
And you want to protect them against ISIS right now.
We want to protect them against everything.
Americans are fighting side by side with the Iraqis. Have you had any reaction or any indication that the Iraqis will now say, Americans can't come in here either?
No, look, we are working through all the diplomatic channels necessary to make sure that our friends and our allies around the globe understand that our position is to protect our borders and to make sure. And again, this is about slowing the process down. Those 109 people are being processed through the system to make sure that the vetting is applied, that they didn't do anything nefarious when they were overseas. And I think that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't let people just re-enter the country who are not citizens of the United States because they've gone to a place that we have concerns about. They should be asked certain questions. They should go through extreme vetting to make sure that when they re-enter this country, that they continue to do so with peaceful purposes.
He seems to forget that a green card, though, does not extend citizenship to any of those people. It does extend the right to reside in this country, and it also gives them protection under laws of our Constitution. He seemed to have forgotten that particular one.
How much of a heads up did you give Homeland Security? You've seen the scenes at these airports.
question-
You heard David Curley report
The
that
people that needed to
weren't
know
ready.
knew. What we couldn't do was
Right, the people that needed to know knew. Like, fabulous guidance was given to all of the Homeland Security agents that were on the ground and the Customs and Border Patrol people who were also on the ground. They have been interviewed and stated that they got no guidance on what to do, so that they were just winging it. But I guess those people didn't really need to know what they were supposed to do.
our position ahead of time to ensure that people flooded in before that happened, before it went into place. So the appropriate leadership was notified and cables were being sent out through the State Department as we speak. The issue was, I know that when you get down to the TSA level and some of the Customs and Border officials who are on the front lines, we had to do it in a way that ensured the safety of America was preserved. And if we had telegraphed that ahead of time, then that would have been a massive security problem. So what we did was made sure that we were coordinating with the appropriate leadership at the appropriate levels through the departments and agencies, both Homeland Security, Border and Customs Protection.
Okay, the executive order also stipulates that after the refugee program is reinstated in 120 days, the government will prioritize religious minorities persecuted in their country. How will you determine what religion people are? How do you vet them?
During this 120-day period, we're going to put a system in place that looks country by country, group by group, and make sure that we put appropriate vetting in place. Again,
a religious test?
Hold on. No, what we're going to do is to make sure that people who have been persecuted for either religious or other reasons have an opportunity to apply and go through a vetting system that ensures that they're coming to this country to seek asylum, to seek a new life for themselves or their family, but to do so with peaceful purposes.
Okay.
That is a religious test, my friend. If they've suffered religious persecution and they're Christian or Hindu or any other religion, that is a religious test.
President Trump said during an interview on the Christian Broadcasting Network that persecuted Christian refugees should be seen as a priority. Why?
In some countries, they should.
Why are Christian refugees?
Okay, so he just let the cat out of the bag. In some countries, they should. Okay.
Because
More worthy. Wait, let me finish. Why are Christian refugees more worthy of admission to the United States than Muslims or even Jewish refugees?
Well, it's a question of making sure that in some of these countries, they are the persecuted group. And so it's a fact that when they live in a majority country of another religion, they are a minority being persecuted, not able to practice their religion, in some cases under threat. And so it's just a fact that they are being persecuted in some of these countries, and we need to make sure that we recognize them so that they can come to this country and be able to practice their religion in accordance with our laws and our Constitution.
If you feel that...
Let me stop this asshole right here. If you live in Saudi Arabia or Iran, Iraq, etc., those are Sunni majority countries with Shia, the minority Muslim sects. So, translation, if the Shia apply for, I guess, asylum or whatever coming to this country, they absolutely would have the right to say, I am a Shia and my country is Sunni and I need to apply for asylum or whatever, refugee status, because the Sunnis are trying to kill the Shias. That's not gonna fly. It's not gonna fly. They won't accept that as a legitimate reason. So translation, you're a Muslim, living in that country, we're not accepting the fact that your particular faction is suffering religious persecution. I can see that one coming now.
Threat is so great from these countries and so great from these refugees. Why just 90 days? Why just 120 days? Can you really get this done?
I think we can, and that's the point, is to make sure that we put the safety of our nation first and foremost, and that we put a plan together during that period to put those extreme vetting measures in place. Look, this is nothing new. President Trump talked about this throughout the campaign and the transition, and he's doing exactly what he told the American people he was going to do. It's interesting. The criticism that's coming is from someone who's gotten into office, hit the ground running, had a flurry of activity to do exactly what he said he was going to do, whether it was bringing back jobs, fighting for American taxpayers and cutting the cost and waste out of government programs, or doing what he said overseas and protecting this nation. But he is not going to apologize for putting the safety of this country first and foremost.
I want
to stop it there in case I misstated something or put two things together that shouldn't have been. Saudi Arabia is a Sunni majority country. Iran is a Shiite majority country. Let's just make sure that we're clear on that. And those are two different sects within the Islamic religion.
to turn to Yemen.
Yeah.
President Trump, as president, as commander-in-chief, suffered the first loss of an American service member in Yemen today in a raid on al-Qaeda operatives. And 3 service members were injured in that raid, another when we lost an aircraft in a hard landing. What can you tell us about that raid, and who did they get?
They got 14 individuals. They killed 14 individuals and captured a whole host of information about future plots that's going to benefit this country and keep us safe. We mourn for the loss of life of the service member who so bravely fought for this country and was killed. And then obviously, as you mentioned, 3 others were injured in the raid. Another one, when the aircraft went down, that aircraft was destroyed.
Shot?
That aircraft was destroyed in a hard landing, or there was
a hard landing and they destroyed it?
And we destroyed that plane to ensure that we didn't allow any of our technology out there. But it continues to show.
Will he go to Dover?
I'm not going to get ahead of this. Obviously, is developing right now when we speak. But the president was informed throughout the evening of the situation. He extends his condolences. But more importantly, he understands the fight that our servicemen and women conduct on a daily basis to keep this country safe. And that's why this order is so important. People are over throughout the world and in some of these important regions like Yemen and countries rather, to ensure the safety of this country. And we need to take steps, and if they're going to go out there and put their lives on the line every day to fight ISIS, to fight other people who are seeking to do us harm, to capture information that will protect future plots, that we do our part to make sure that we're not having an open door to allow people to march right into our country.
Let me...
Okay, you asshole. But you just put the 5,000 or so service people that are in that region, you just put them at greater risk by generating this travel ban, which is going to give ISIS and other radical groups ammunition by saying, look, United States, they're leaving you guys high and dry, and they don't want you in their country. So what you just did has put even more American lives at risk.
Let me turn to
Russia.
Russia.
Order, though, ties right into that, because we've got to do our part here to make sure that while they fight so gallantly overseas, that we're protecting the country and our borders.
I want to turn to the Russian sanctions. President Trump talked to Vladimir Putin yesterday about mutual cooperation in defeating ISIS and working together to achieve more peace throughout the world, including Syria.
Right.
Kellyanne Conway opened the door on Friday to removing sanctions against Russia, and the readout from the Kremlin said they underlined the importance of restoring mutually profitable trade and economic connections. Could President Trump agree to remove those sanctions without consequences
Yesterday
for Ukraine?
was the first call that they had. We're continuing to work with them to combat ISIS, especially in Syria, and deal with this crisis in Aleppo.
Yeah, the Russians are really working hard. Those motherfuckers are war criminals. They use precision missiles to destroy schools and hospitals. And this prick, Donald Trump, is treating this guy like he's the second coming of Christ.
There's an area in which we've got to work with them if we're going to defeat ISIS. And I think that's the first step. We have not made any decisions on sanctions. The president will continue to have conversations, and our team will continue to liaise with Russian officials. But no decisions were made. That really wasn't brought up on the call yesterday.
Republican John McCain said, for the sake of America's national security and that of our allies, President Trump should put an end to this speculation about lifting sanctions. Are you not willing to do that?
The president doesn't take anything off the table. He is a world-class negotiator. Part of the reason he's been so successful and part of the reason that he was elected president is because people understand that not only was he a successful businessman, but he's an amazing negotiator. And he doesn't come in telling people what he's going to take in or off the table to get the best deal possible for this country. He's going to work with Russia or any other country for that matter in areas of shared agreement. And if protecting this country, going back to what we've been talking about so far, he's going to work with them. If we can come up with a plan or partner with them in any way to defeat ISIS, then we're going to do it.
I want to turn to the National Security Council. The National Security Council executive order that has now been put in place removes the Director of National Intelligence, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff from the NSC principals meetings. They are now only invited when, quote, instead in all of the meetings, White House Chief Strategist Steve Bannon, former National Security Advisor Susan Rice tweeting this morning, "This is stone cold crazy. After a week of crazy. Who needs military advice or intel to make policy on ISIL, Syria, Afghanistan, DPRK, adding Chairman of Joint Chiefs and DNI treated as afterthoughts in cabinet-level principled meetings, and where's the CIA? Cut out of everything." She also retweeted this: "Trump loves and trusts the military so much he just kicked them out of the National Security Council and put in a Nazi in their place."
Yeah, she called it the way she saw it. One thing that she didn't mention was the Director of National Intelligence and the Chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff are all vetted through Congress. They have to be confirmed by Congress. Donald Trump just kicked out two people that were vetted and confirmed by Congress and replaced them with one guy who has gone through no vetting whatsoever. You figure that one out. There is a Nazi white supremacist sitting right next to Donald Trump and whispering in his ear. And unfortunately, there's not a damn thing that we can do about it unless we can tie him to something that we can arrest him for.
Clearly inappropriate language from a former ambassador. Look,
it was totally appropriate language because it's true. That fucking guy's a Nazi.
Stone cold crazy?
The comments that she made, look, the reality is that General Flynn, former head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, brought significant reforms to the NSC and to the Homeland Security Council, headed by Tom Bossert, who's an expert in all of this area.
The truth is, General Flynn got his revenge on the guys that pretty much kicked him out of the intelligence community because he's a fucking nut that believes in conspiracy theories. And he has trouble dealing with people, and he's got authority issue problems.
We are instilling reforms to make sure that we streamline the process for the president to make decisions on key important intelligence matters. You've got a leader in General Flynn who understands the intelligence process and the reforms that are needed probably better than anybody else. And when you talk about the missteps that were made by the last administration,
Flynn understands better than the chairman of the Joint Chiefs or the director of National Intelligence. That's fucking bullshit. It gets exasperating, but he's even going to go further when he starts talking about Bannon.
with all due respect, I think Ambassador Rice might want to wait and see how we handle this, because I think so far they've got an expert team of folks that have come in to understand the national, to our intelligence systems and how we can modernize.
But streamlined without the chairman, without the DNI.
We've got an unbelievable group of folks that are part of the NSC that are making decisions to get that. The president gets plenty of information from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He continues to meet with them on a regular basis. He gets briefed by the Secretary of Defense. But what they have done is modernize the National Security Council so that it's less bureaucratic and more focused on providing the president with the intelligence he needs to make
Steve Bannon?
Steve Bannon.
What does he provide?
Well, he was a former naval officer. He's got a tremendous understanding of the world and the geopolitical landscape.
That is fucking bullshit. He's sitting here blowing smoke up our asses, talking about Steve Bannon like he's a national security or national intelligence expert. Steve Bannon is none of those things. This prick was an officer in the Navy, and he went to Goldman Sachs, and then he ran Breitbart. Okay, that's his area of expertise, being a goddamn white supremacist Nazi racist. That's his area of expertise, and these guys are going to try to make it appear like he's Einstein or somebody.
We have now.
And so he's giving military advice in there?
No, it's not giving advice. Part of this is analysis. The data comes in, and how we synthesize that data to make the best decision for our country is
analyzing information regarding our enemies, okay, and the things that we need to do is giving military advice, whether to utilize the military or not to utilize the military. That is military advice.
It's not just about intelligence. It's about the intelligence that comes in and the analysis that comes out of that. Having key decision makers and the chief strategist for the United States, for the president, to come in and talk about what the strategy is going forward is crucial. The data comes in raw, and what these key individuals do is help provide guidance for the president to make decisions. Having the chief strategist for the president in those meetings, who has a significant military background, to help guide what the president.
I don't call being a officer in the Navy significant military experience. It is military experience, don't get me wrong, but this guy, I believe, attained the rank of either lieutenant or captain. He didn't stay in or choose to stay in or obtain a rank above that. That is no great shakes. Captains and lieutenants in the Navy are a dime a dozen.
His final analysis is going to be as crucial.
Okay, thanks very much for
Thank you,
joining
Martha.
us this morning.
This guy, Jesus Christ, you know, I need to feel better, and the only way I think I'm going to feel better is if General Mathis or Secretary Mathis does an interview to calm me down. But short of him and Kelly, nobody else in that administration basically gives me any significant comfort.